The stars looked different today. Captain Jake Morrison knew this because he had been staring at them for 3 years straight while patrolling the edge of human space. His ship, the Defiant, was small compared to the cargo vessels that traveled between Earth and Mars, but it was fast and had enough weapons to handle pirates or asteroids that got too close to the shipping lanes. Jake was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm started screaming. His hands moved to the controls before his brain fully understood what was happening. The radar screen showed something impossible. 300 ships had just appeared at the edge of the solar system. They were big, really big. Each one was the size of a city. "This is impossible," said Lieutenant Ryan Murphy, Jake's second in command. Ryan was young and smart, fresh out of the academy on Mars. He had never seen anything like this before. Neither had Jake. But Jake had been in space long enough to know that impossible things happened all the time. The communication system crackled to life. The voice that came through was not human. It spoke in perfect English, but there was something cold about it, something that made Jake's skin crawl. "Primitive species of System 47B, you will submit to Imperial rule or face extinction. You have 1 solar rotation to comply." Jake stared at the screen. 300 alien ships hung in space like sleeping giants. They had not moved since appearing, but Jake could feel their power even from millions of miles away. Each ship bristled with weapons that could probably destroy his little patrol vessel with a single shot. Ryan looked at Jake with wide eyes. "Captain, what do we do?" Jake thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Then he opened the communication channel. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. You are trespassing in human space. Leave immediately, or we will consider your presence an act of war." The silence that followed lasted for 30 seconds. Then alien laughter filled the bridge of the Defiant. It was not a pleasant sound. "Small human ship, you amuse us. Your entire species will serve the Galactic Empire, or be destroyed. There is no third option." On the command ship of the alien fleet, Admiral Zexathera studied the readings from the human vessel. It was tiny, barely worth noticing. The entire human military appeared to consist of a few dozen ships scattered throughout their star system. This would be the easiest conquest in Imperial history. The Admiral had been conquering worlds for over 200 years. He had seen proud civilizations beg for mercy. He had watched entire species surrender without firing a single shot. The pattern was always the same: show overwhelming force, demand submission, and wait for the inevitable surrender. But something felt different about these humans. The small ship had not run away. The captain had actually threatened them. Zexathera found this curious rather than concerning. Perhaps these humans were simply too primitive to understand the situation. Back on Earth, President Lisa Hamilton was having the worst day of her life. She had been in office for 2 years, dealing with normal problems like trade agreements and budget disputes. Alien invasions were not in her job description. The emergency meeting was held in the deepest bunker under the White House. General Amy Watson, the head of Earth's military forces, spread star charts across the table. Admiral Kevin Brooks, who commanded the space fleet, looked grim. "How many ships do we have?" Lisa asked. 43 combat vessels," Kevin answered. "Most of them are patrol boats like Morrison's ship. We have 6 heavy cruisers and 2 battleships. Against 300 alien ships, we might last 10 minutes. Amy Watson shook her head. "We might last longer than that. Our ships are smaller, but they're faster. And we know this system better than they do." "You want to fight them?" Lisa asked. "With 43 ships against 300? "I want to make them pay for every inch," Amy replied. "Humans don't surrender. We never surrender, even when we should." Kevin pulled up a tactical display. "The alien ships are big and slow. They're designed to intimidate, not to maneuver. If we can get close enough, we might be able to do some damage before they destroy us." Lisa stared at the display. 300 red dots surrounded by 43 blue dots. It looked hopeless. But Amy was right about one thing. Humans had never been good at giving up, even when giving up made sense. "What about evacuation?" Lisa asked. "Can we get people off Earth?" "Where would they go?" Kevin asked. "The aliens control space now. Mars has 2 million people and no real defenses. The moon bases have maybe 50,000. There's nowhere to run. Amy leaned forward. There's something else. Our deep space monitoring stations have been tracking these ships for 3 days. They didn't just appear. They've been moving toward us at faster than light speed, but they slowed down at the edge of our system. Why would they do that? Lisa asked. Because they want us to see them coming, Amy replied. This is psychological warfare. They want us to be afraid before they attack. Back in space, Jake Morrison was thinking the same thing. The alien ships had not moved since their arrival. They just sat there, waiting. It was like a cat playing with a mouse before killing it. Ryan was monitoring all communication channels. Captain, I'm picking up signals from all over the system. Earth Command is mobilizing everything. Mars Defense Force is powering up their weapons. Even the mining stations are going to alert status. Jake nodded. The aliens probably thought they were dealing with a small, weak species. They were about to learn something about humans that most humans didn't even know about themselves. Send a message to Earth Command, Jake ordered. Tell them the Defiant is holding position. We're not backing down. Admiral Zexathara received reports from his scout ships. The humans were indeed mobilizing their pathetic fleet. Several dozen small vessels were moving into defensive positions around their home world. It was brave, but pointless. The Admiral had seen this before. Small species always tried to fight at first. They would struggle briefly, lose badly, and then surrender. The humans would follow the same pattern. By tomorrow, their leaders would be begging for mercy. But as Zexathara watched the tactical display, something unexpected happened. More human ships appeared on his sensors. Then more, and more. Ships that had not been there an hour ago were suddenly everywhere. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, we are detecting new energy signatures throughout the human system. Multiple weapon systems are coming online. Zexathara frowned. His initial scans had shown minimal military presence. Either his equipment was malfunctioning or the humans had been hiding something. Something big. Jake Morrison smiled as he watched his tactical display update. All across the solar system, hidden defense platforms were revealing themselves. Mining stations were dropping their camouflage and showing their true nature as weapons platforms. The asteroid belt itself was lighting up with energy signatures as concealed fortresses came online. The aliens thought they were facing 43 ships. They were actually facing a defense network that had been 50 years in the making. A network designed by humans who had always known that someday, something would come for them from the stars. And humans had never been good at making things easy for their enemies. Commander Alex Chen had been waiting for this day his entire life. Deep inside a mountain on Earth's moon, he sat in front of a control panel that most people thought controlled mining equipment. They were wrong. For 30 years, Alex had been the secret commander of humanity's hidden defense network. The Solar Defense Network was humanity's best-kept secret. While politicians argued about space budgets and scientists explored distant planets, military engineers had been turning the entire solar system into a fortress. Every mining station, every research outpost, every communications satellite had a second purpose that appeared nowhere in official records. Alex pressed a series of buttons that he had practiced pressing 10,000 times. Across the solar system, sleeping giants began to wake up. On Mars, dust storms that had been raging for months suddenly stopped. On Europa, ice processing plants revealed weapon systems that could punch holes through starship armor. In the asteroid belt, rocks that had been floating in space for years opened up to show missile launchers. The aliens had made their first mistake. They had given humans 24 hours to surrender. That was 24 hours too many. Dr. Karen Wright was having the best day of her scientific career. For 15 years, she had been working on the Prometheus project in a laboratory that officially did not exist. Her work was so secret that even her husband thought she studied weather patterns. In reality, she had been building the most advanced weapon system in human history. The Prometheus project was based on quantum physics that most humans did not understand. Karen had created billions of tiny robots, each smaller than a virus. These nanobots could talk to each other instantly across any distance. They could coordinate attacks, share information, and work together like a single giant brain. Karen had been seeding these nanobots throughout the solar system for 20 years. They were in every asteroid, on every planet, inside every space station. When she activated them, they would turn the entire solar system into one massive weapon. She pressed the activation button and smiled. The aliens were about to learn that humans had been preparing for this fight longer than their civilization had existed. Captain Jake Morrison watched his tactical display change from red to green as hidden weapon systems came online. His small patrol ship was no longer alone. Suddenly, he was connected to thousands of weapon platforms, each one controlled by artificial intelligence that could think faster than any human. Lieutenant Ryan Murphy stared at the display in amazement. "Captain, where did all these weapons come from?" Jake smiled. "The same place our ancestors hid their weapons when stronger enemies came to take their land. We buried them where the enemy couldn't see them, and we waited." Admiral Zexithara was beginning to feel something he had not felt in 200 years of conquest. Uncertainty. His sensors were showing weapon signatures throughout the human system. Big weapons. Weapons that should not exist on a primitive world. His tactical officer, a young officer named Krixtal, looked confused. "Admiral, our initial scans showed minimal defenses. Now we are detecting thousands of weapon platforms. Either our equipment malfunctioned, or these humans have been hiding their true capabilities." Zexithara studied the tactical display. The human ships were still vastly outnumbered, but now they had support from weapon systems scattered throughout their star system. More concerning was the fact that these weapons had been completely invisible until now. That suggested a level of military planning that primitive species simply did not possess. "Send probe ships to investigate the closest human positions," Zexithara ordered. "I want to know what we are really facing." On the far side of Earth's moon, Colonel Danny Foster commanded a weapon that had been disguised as a mining operation. For 40 years. The humans called it a mass driver, but it was really a giant gun that could shoot metal projectiles at incredible speeds. Danny had been waiting his whole career to fire it. The lunar surface looked peaceful from space, but underneath the dust and rocks, humans had built the largest weapon in the solar system. The entire moon had been turned into a fortress. Miles of tunnels connected weapon systems that could destroy spacecraft from millions of miles away. Danny watched the alien probe ships approach and calculated firing solutions. The aliens thought they were investigating a mining colony. They were actually flying straight into the barrel of the biggest gun ever built. On Mars, Commander Steve Rogers was having fun with the weather. For 10 years, he had been commander of the Mars Atmospheric Control System. Officially, his job was to study dust storms and help colonists avoid bad weather. Unofficially, he could create hurricanes on command. The Red Planet's famous dust storms were not entirely natural. Human engineers had been seeding the atmosphere with metallic particles and using electromagnetic fields to control weather patterns. Steve could create a storm that would strip the paint off a starship, or clear skies that would give his gunners perfect visibility. The alien landing craft approaching Mars were about to discover that the weather forecast called for death. Back on Earth, Captain Julie Barnes floated in zero gravity aboard a space station that looked like a communications relay. In reality, it was the command center for Earth's orbital defense grid. Julie commanded 3,000 satellites that the aliens thought were used for television and internet service. Each satellite was small and looked harmless. Together, they formed a web of destruction around Earth that could intercept incoming missiles or attack enemy spacecraft. The aliens would have to destroy every single satellite to break through Earth's defenses, and Julie had trained for 10 years to make that as difficult as possible. Dr. Robert Hayes worked in a research station buried deep in Europa's ice. His official job was studying the possibility of life in Europa's underground ocean. His real job was much more interesting. Robert was a computer expert who specialized in alien technology. For 20 years, humans had been studying every piece of alien technology they could find. Crashed ships, abandoned equipment, even garbage left behind by alien traders. Robert had learned how alien computers worked and, more importantly, how to break them. He had written computer viruses specifically designed to attack alien systems. The aliens used standardized technology across their entire empire. That made them efficient, but it also made them vulnerable. One virus could potentially cripple their entire fleet. Robert uploaded his masterpiece into a communications probe and launched it toward the alien fleet. The aliens would intercept it, thinking they were capturing human intelligence. Instead, they would be downloading their own destruction. Major Linda Martinez commanded Earth's rapid response teams from a base that did not appear on any map. Her soldiers were trained for one specific mission: boarding alien spacecraft and causing as much chaos as possible. Linda's troops did not fight like normal soldiers. They fought like pirates and terrorists, using improvised weapons and hit-and-run tactics. Their job was not to win battles, but to make the aliens afraid to leave their ships. She had been studying alien technology and tactics for 15 years. She knew exactly where alien ships were weakest, exactly how their security systems worked, and exactly how to make alien commanders wish they had never heard of humans. Admiral Zexathara received the first casualty reports and felt something he had not experienced in decades: fear. The human probe ships were not just defending themselves, they were winning. His probe ships had been destroyed by weapons that should not exist: kinetic projectiles moving at impossible speeds, energy beams that could cut through Imperial armor like paper. Worst of all, the humans were using tactics that made no sense according to established military doctrine. The Admiral realized that this would not be a normal conquest. These humans had been preparing for war longer than most species had been spacefaring. They had turned their entire star system into a weapon, and they were not afraid to use it. The first battle began when 12 Imperial probe ships approached Earth's moon. They expected to find a small mining colony with basic defenses. Instead, they found Colonel Danny Foster waiting for them with the largest gun in the solar system. Danny had been practicing this shot for 20 years. The lunar mass driver was hidden beneath tons of moon rock and dust. From space, it looked like just another crater on the moon's surface. In reality, it was a railgun that stretched for 50 miles through the moon's core. The alien probe ships moved in a perfect formation, following standard Imperial reconnaissance protocol. Danny smiled as he watched them approach. The aliens were predictable. Humans were not. He pressed the firing button. The tungsten rod that shot out of the moon was only 6 feet long and 1 foot wide, but it was moving at 12% of the speed of light. When it hit the lead alien ship, the explosion lit up space like a small sun. The Imperial shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, did nothing against a chunk of metal moving at impossible speed. The probe ship simply ceased to exist. The shockwave from the impact destroyed 2 more ships and sent the rest spinning away like leaves in a hurricane. Admiral Zexathara watched the destruction from his command ship and felt his confidence cracking. In 3,000 years of Imperial expansion, no primitive species had ever destroyed 3 Imperial vessels with a single shot. The humans had just done it with mining equipment. His tactical officer looked terrified. "Admiral, the humans have turned their moon into a weapon. Our probe ships detected massive energy buildups beneath the surface. The entire satellite appears to be fortified." Zexathara studied the tactical display. The human moon was small compared to Imperial battleships, but size did not matter if they could shoot projectiles at relativistic speeds. His ships were designed to fight other starships, not weaponized planets. On Mars, the Imperial landing craft found themselves flying into hell. Commander Steve Rogers had been waiting for them with weather that could kill. The dust storm he created was not natural. It was a carefully controlled weapon that turned the Martian atmosphere into a grinding machine. The metallic particles in the dust were microscopic, but they were moving at 300 miles per hour. They stripped the paint off the Imperial ships, then the outer hull, then everything else. The aliens tried to use their shields, but the particles were too small and too numerous. 3 landing craft crashed into the Martian desert. The crews that survived the crashes found themselves stranded on a planet where humans controlled the weather. Steve Rogers made sure they understood their situation by creating a sandstorm that would last for weeks. The Imperial troops were trained for standard planetary assault operations. They were not trained to fight an enemy that could control the wind itself. Back in Earth's orbit, Captain Julie Barnes was having the time of her life. Her orbital defense satellites had looked like communications equipment for 30 years. The aliens had completely ignored them during their initial scans. That was their second mistake. Each satellite was small, about the size of a refrigerator. But there were 3,000 of them, and they were all armed. Julie had turned Earth's communications network into a wall of death that surrounded the entire planet. When the Imperial ships tried to approach Earth, they found themselves flying through a minefield of laser beams and missile attacks. The satellites were too small and too numerous to target individually. Destroying all of them would take hours, and Julie was not planning to give the aliens that much time. The alien ships were forced to retreat to a safe distance, but now they were too far away to effectively attack Earth's surface. Julie had turned the homeworld into an untouchable fortress using nothing but modified television satellites. Admiral Zexathera was beginning to understand that he had made a terrible mistake. The humans were not fighting like any species he had encountered before. They did not have bigger ships or better weapons. Instead, they had turned everything in their star system into a weapon. Every asteroid, every moon, every piece of space, debris was potentially dangerous. The humans fought like engineers, not soldiers. They solved problems instead of following military doctrine. On Europa, Dr. Robert Hayes launched his computer virus at the Imperial fleet. The aliens intercepted his communication probe, thinking they were capturing valuable intelligence about human defenses. Instead, they downloaded a program that began eating their computer systems from the inside. Robert had studied alien technology for 20 years. He knew that the Imperial fleet used standardized computer systems across all their ships. That made them efficient, but it also made them vulnerable to a virus designed specifically for their technology. The virus spread through the Imperial communication network like wildfire. Ships began losing navigation, weapon systems started malfunctioning, and life support systems began shutting down randomly. The aliens found themselves fighting their own technology as much as they were fighting humans. Major Linda Martinez led the first human boarding party onto an Imperial supply ship. Her team did not look like soldiers. They looked like mechanics and construction workers, because that was exactly what they were. The difference was that these mechanics knew how to use their tools as weapons. Linda's team cut through the alien hull using plasma torches designed for building starships. They disabled the alien security systems using electromagnetic pulse devices that were normally used for testing electronics. They captured the alien crew using stun weapons that had been modified from mining equipment. The aliens had never faced boarders who treated their advanced starship like a construction project. Linda's team took apart the alien ship piece by piece, studying every component and downloading every computer file. Within hours, humans knew more about Imperial technology than most Imperial engineers. They knew how the ships were built, how they were armed, and most importantly, how they could be destroyed. Captain Pete Davis led a squadron of human fighters against an Imperial cruiser that was 1,000 times larger than his ship. His pilots did not try to match the alien vessel in firepower. Instead, they swarmed around it like angry bees, attacking weak points and retreating before the aliens could respond. Pete's fighters were fast and maneuverable. They could change direction instantly and hide behind asteroids or debris. The Imperial cruiser was powerful but slow. It was designed to fight other large ships, not tiny fighters that attacked from every direction at once. The human pilots had trained for this their entire careers. They knew exactly where Imperial ships were weakest. They targeted sensors, weapon, systems, and engine components. Each attack did minimal damage, but hundreds of small attacks added up to major system failures. The Imperial cruiser found itself blind, defenseless, and unable to maneuver. Pete's squadron had turned a mighty warship into a floating piece of junk, using nothing but persistence and precise targeting. Admiral Zexathera received damage reports from across his fleet and realized that the situation was spiraling out of control. The humans were not trying to win a conventional space battle. They were systematically dismantling his fleet using tactics that no military academy had ever taught. His ships were being attacked by everything from weaponized moons to computer viruses. His troops were being defeated by construction workers using modified mining equipment. His advanced technology was being turned against him by an enemy that treated warfare like an engineering problem. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Zexthara considered the possibility that the Imperial fleet might lose this battle, not because the humans were stronger, but because they were completely unpredictable. The humans did not fight fair. They did not follow rules. They used every dirty trick, every improvised weapon, and every psychological advantage they could find. They fought like their survival depended on it because it did, and they were winning. Admiral Zexthara called an emergency meeting with his fleet commanders. The holographic faces of 12 Imperial captains appeared around the conference table on his flagship. Each face showed the same expression of confusion and growing fear. Captain Vaktar of the heavy cruiser Dominator spoke first. "Admiral, we have lost contact with 7 ships in the past 6 hours. The human attacks are unlike anything in our tactical databases. They are not following any known patterns of warfare." Captain Reska of the battleship Iron Fist nodded in agreement. "My ship has been attacked 17 times by small human fighters. Each attack targeted a different system. We have lost weapons, sensors, communications, and life support in various sections. The humans are taking apart our ships one piece at a time." Admiral Zexthara studied the battle reports. The Imperial fleet was not losing ships quickly, but they were being systematically disabled by an enemy that seemed to know exactly where to hit them. The humans fought like they had detailed blueprints of every Imperial vessel. The most disturbing report came from Captain Dexvor of the supply ship Provision. "Admiral, human boarders captured my ship for 3 hours before disappearing. They did not try to destroy it or capture the crew. They simply downloaded our entire computer database and left. They treated my ship like a library. What the Imperial commanders did not know was that Colonel Greg Adams had spent those 3 hours learning everything humans needed to know about Imperial technology, tactics, and strategic planning. His team of engineers and computer specialists had copied years of Imperial military secrets in a single raid. Greg Adams was not a traditional soldier. He was a problem solver who happened to wear a military uniform. His team included mechanics, computer programmers, and engineers who could take apart any machine and figure out how it worked. They had just taken apart an Imperial starship and learned its secrets. Back on Earth, Dr. Karen Wright analyzed the captured Imperial data with her quantum nanobots. The tiny robots could process information faster than any human computer. Within hours, they had identified weaknesses in every type of Imperial ship and developed countermeasures for every Imperial weapon system. Karen discovered something that changed everything. The Imperial fleet was not just visiting Earth. They were testing human defenses for a much larger invasion fleet that was already on its way. The 300 ships currently in the solar system were just the advanced scouts for an army of 10,000 vessels. But Karen also discovered something the Imperials did not expect. The humans had been monitoring Imperial communications for over a year before first contact. Every message, every tactical report, every strategic discussion had been recorded and analyzed by human intelligence. The humans knew about Imperial expansion patterns, military doctrine, supply lines, and political weaknesses. They knew which Imperial colonies were unhappy with Imperial rule. They knew which Imperial commanders disagreed with their orders. They knew everything. Lieutenant Sarah Kim sat in a bunker on the moon, surrounded by computers that were busy breaking Imperial military codes. Sarah was the best codebreaker in human space, and she had been working on Imperial encryption for 18 months before the fleet arrived. The Imperial military used quantum encryption that they believed was unbreakable. They were wrong. Sarah had found a weakness in their quantum keys and could read every Imperial message as soon as it was sent. The humans knew Imperial battle plans before most Imperial captains received their orders. Sarah smiled as she watched Imperial commanders argue about tactics over their secure communications. They were debating how to attack human positions that had already been evacuated. They were planning assaults on weapon systems that had already been moved to new locations. The humans were always one step ahead because they could read the Imperial playbook in real time. Captain Jake Morrison received new orders from Earth Command. His small patrol ship was no longer alone. A fleet of human vessels had assembled around him, all of them modified civilian ships that had been converted into weapons platforms. The mining ship Prospector had been turned into a missile launcher. The cargo hauler Big Wheel now carried enough explosives to destroy a small moon. The research vessel Discovery had been equipped with experimental weapons that human scientists had been wanting to test for years. Jake found himself commanding a fleet of improvised warships crewed by miners, truckers, and scientists who had volunteered to fight. None of them were professional soldiers, but they all understood machines and they all knew how to work together to solve problems. Admiral Zexithara watched the human fleet approach and felt something he had never experienced before. The humans were attacking him with garbage trucks and mining equipment, but somehow they were winning. His tactical officer reported more bad news. "Admiral, our communication systems are compromised. The humans appear to be reading our encrypted messages. They are anticipating our moves before we make them." Zexithara realized that the humans had been preparing for this war longer than the Imperial fleet had been traveling to reach Earth. Every human response was too quick, too precise, too perfectly timed to be improvised. On Mars, Commander Steve Rogers created a dust storm that spelled out a message in letters 50 miles tall. The message was written in the Imperial language and could be seen from space. It said simply, "Go home." The psychological impact on Imperial forces was devastating. The humans were not just fighting them, they were mocking them. They were treating the mighty Imperial fleet like a minor annoyance that could be handled with modified construction equipment and bad weather. Major Linda Martinez led her second boarding mission, this time targeting an Imperial command ship. Her team had learned from studying the first captured vessel. They knew exactly where to cut through the hull, exactly which systems to disable, and exactly how to avoid Imperial security measures. Linda's team moved through the alien ship like they owned it. They had studied the ship's blueprints for weeks. They knew every corridor, every room, every hiding place. The Imperial crew found themselves trapped in their own ship by enemies who knew the layout better than they did. The humans captured 3 Imperial officers and downloaded the ship's navigation database. Now they knew the location of every Imperial world, every military base, and every strategic resource in the galaxy. Dr. Robert Hayes uploaded a new virus into the Imperial fleet's computer network. This one was more sophisticated than his first attempt. It did not just cause system failures, it made Imperial computers work against their own crews. Weapon systems began targeting other Imperial ships. Navigation computers sent ships toward dangerous asteroid fields. Life support systems began playing human music instead of providing oxygen readings. The Imperial fleet found itself fighting a war against its own technology. Captain Pete Davis led his fighter squadron on a different kind of mission. Instead of attacking Imperial ships, they began rescuing Imperial escape pods. Many Imperial crew members had been forced to abandon their damaged vessels, and Pete's pilots brought them back to human ships. The rescued Imperial soldiers expected to be tortured or killed. Instead, they were given medical treatment, food, and comfortable quarters. The humans treated prisoners better than most Imperial officers treated their own crews. The psychological effect was immediate. Imperial soldiers began to wonder why they were fighting people who showed them more kindness than their own commanders. Some began to question whether the Imperial cause was worth dying for. Admiral Zexithara received a message from one of his own officers who had been captured by humans. The message was simple. The humans are not our enemies. They are trying to help us. Maybe we should listen to them. The Admiral realized that the humans were not just winning the military battle. They were winning the war for the hearts and minds of his own troops. The Imperial fleet was falling apart from the inside as well as from outside attacks. For the first time in Imperial history, an invasion fleet was being defeated not by superior firepower, but by an enemy that refused to hate them. The humans fought like they were solving a problem, not like they were trying to destroy an enemy. And somehow that made them more dangerous than any enemy the Empire had ever faced. Admiral Zexithara stood in his command center, and watched his mighty fleet fall apart. Half of his ships had computer viruses that made them unreliable. A quarter of his crews were questioning their orders. The rest were too damaged to fight effectively. The humans had done something impossible. They had defeated an Imperial fleet without destroying it. Instead, they had turned it into a liability. His communication officer approached with another message from the human fleet. "Admiral, the human commander is requesting a meeting. He says he has important information about Imperial strategy that we need to hear." Zexathera had been expecting demands for surrender. Instead, the humans wanted to talk. In 3,000 years of Imperial expansion, no enemy had ever asked for negotiations while they were winning. Captain Jake Morrison appeared on the main screen of the Imperial flagship. Behind him, the human fleet waited in perfect formation. They were still outnumbered 3-1, but somehow they looked like the stronger force. "Admiral Zexathera," Jake said in a calm voice, "we need to discuss the situation in your galaxy. Your empire is in more danger than you realize, and we might be able to help each other." The Admiral was confused. "Help each other? You are attacking my fleet." Jake smiled. "We are defending our home. There is a difference. But we have been monitoring Imperial communications for over a year. We know about the rebel movements in the outer colonies. We know about the economic problems in the core worlds. We know about the political struggles in your capital." Zexathera felt a chill run down his spine. The humans knew about classified Imperial information that even he was not supposed to have access to. "Your empire is collapsing," Jake continued. "This invasion fleet is not about conquest. It is about finding new resources to prop up a failing system. The problem is that conquest is not solving your real problems, it is making them worse." Dr. Karen Wright had spent the night analyzing captured Imperial data with her quantum nanobots. What she found was shocking. The Galactic Empire was not the mighty civilization it pretended to be. It was a house of cards that was ready to fall. The Tew Empire controlled thousands of worlds, but most of them were unhappy with Imperial rule. The military was overstretched and underfunded. The economy was dependent on constant expansion to find new resources and slaves. The government was corrupt and inefficient. Karen realized that the Imperial invasion of Earth was not a sign of strength. It was a sign of desperation. Colonel Greg Adams transmitted his analysis to the Imperial fleet. "Your empire has been conquering worlds for 3,000 years, but you have never learned how to actually govern them. You take their resources and leave them poor. You take their people and make them slaves. Eventually, they rebel." The Imperial commanders read the human analysis and recognized the truth in it. The Empire was facing rebellions on dozens of worlds. The military was spending more time fighting insurgencies than expanding territory. The cost of maintaining control over conquered worlds was becoming greater than the benefit of conquering them. Greg continued his presentation. "Humans have studied your history. Every empire that follows your pattern eventually collapses. The question is whether it collapses gradually or catastrophically. Right now, you are heading for catastrophic collapse." Admiral Zexathera knew that the human analysis was correct. He had been fighting rebellions for 50 years. Each conquered world required more troops to control. Each new conquest made the empire weaker instead of stronger. "What are you proposing?" the Admiral asked. Jake Morrison leaned forward. "We propose that you stop conquering and start trading. Earth has resources and technology that your empire needs. We also have experience building stable governments that people actually want to live under. We can help you fix your empire before it falls apart." Lieutenant Sarah Kim had been monitoring Imperial communications during the negotiations. She discovered something important. The Imperial High Command was planning to abandon this invasion fleet if it failed to conquer Earth quickly. The 300 ships around Earth were considered expendable. Sarah transmitted this information to Admiral Zexathera. "Your own government is planning to abandon you. If you fail here, they will not send rescue ships. They will declare you all casualties of war and move on to the next target." The revelation hit the Imperial fleet like a shockwave. The soldiers and officers realized that they were not heroes of the Empire. They were expendable pawns in a game played by politicians who did not care about their lives. Major Linda Martinez opened communications with Imperial troops on a dozen different ships. You do not have to die for an empire that does not care about you. Earth is offering asylum to any Imperial soldier who wants to defect. We will give you citizenship, jobs, and a chance to build a better life. The response was immediate. Hundreds of Imperial soldiers began requesting permission to defect. They had seen how humans treated prisoners. They had heard the human analysis of Imperial problems. They realized that fighting for the Empire was fighting for a lost cause. Commander Steve Rogers created a clear sky over Mars and invited Imperial landing parties to visit human colonies. The Imperial soldiers expected to find primitive settlements. Instead, they found advanced cities where humans and aliens lived together in peace. The colonies included refugees from other worlds that the Empire had conquered. Humans had been rescuing Imperial slaves and enemy civilians for decades. They had built a society that welcomed anyone who wanted to live in freedom. Captain Pete Davis led a formation of human and defected Imperial ships on a joint patrol of the asteroid belt. Former enemies worked side by side, sharing technology and tactics. The human philosophy of cooperation was more appealing than the Imperial philosophy of domination. Dr. Robert Hayes developed a communication network that allowed Imperial soldiers to talk directly to their families on distant worlds. Many of them had not spoken to their loved ones in years. The emotional reunions convinced more soldiers that the war was not worth fighting. Admiral Zexathera faced an impossible choice. He could continue fighting a war he could not win against an enemy that was trying to help him. Or he could accept defeat and face the consequences from his own government. The decision was made for him when his own officers staged a mutiny. Captain Vakatar led a group of Imperial commanders who formally requested permission to surrender to the humans. Admiral, Vakatar said, "We have been soldiers for the Empire our entire lives, but the Empire we serve no longer exists. These humans offer us something better than conquest. They offer us hope." Jake Morrison received the Imperial surrender with grace and dignity. Admiral Zex Thara, you and your crews are welcome to stay in our solar system as long as you want. We will help you contact your families and find new homes if you desire. Or you can return to Imperial space with our message of friendship. Admiral Zexathara made the most difficult decision of his military career. He transmitted a message to Imperial High Command that would change galactic history. "This is Admiral Zexathara of the Third Fleet. I am ordering a full withdrawal from System 47B. The species known as humans are not suitable for conquest. Recommend immediate reclassification from conquest target to potential ally." The message continued. "These humans possess technological capabilities that exceed our initial estimates. More importantly, they possess social and political systems that solve problems we have been unable to solve. Continued hostile action against this species is inadvisable." The final part of the message was the most important. The humans have offered to share their knowledge and resources through peaceful trade. They have demonstrated that cooperation is more effective than conquest. Recommend opening diplomatic relations immediately. As the Imperial fleet prepared to leave the solar system, half of the ships requested permission to stay and establish a permanent embassy. Thousands of Imperial soldiers chose to defect and become human citizens. Admiral Zexthara himself chose to remain on Earth as the first Imperial ambassador to humanity. He had discovered something in the human solar system that was more valuable than any conquest: a better way to live. The Galactic Empire had encountered thousands of species in their expansion across the galaxy. For the first time in their history, they had found one that could teach them something worth learning. The age of Imperial conquest was ending. The age of cooperation was about to begin.